I never wanted the money. I just wanted justice for the man who gave me everything. My name is Evan Mercer, and by the time most people heard my name, they were already calling me a fool. I was 34 years old when I married Margaret Holloway, one of the most powerful women in Chicago's logistics industry. She was 61, sharp as a blade, and the loneliest person I had ever met. Her 2 children from her first marriage, Serena and Cole Holloway, had made sure of that. I knew the moment I placed the ring on her finger that they would never stop coming for me. For 19 years, I was by Margaret's side, not for the penthouse, not for the corporate jets or the charity galas or the name on the building downtown. I was there because she was brilliant and kind and deserved someone who actually saw her. Serena and Cole saw none of that. To them, I was an intruder, a young, soft-spoken art curator from the South Side who had somehow charmed his way into the Holloway fortune. They were wrong about my motives, but they were right about one thing. I had been paying very close attention. When Margaret died suddenly from a cardiac event on a quiet Thursday morning, I held her hand until the warmth left it. I had 24 hours of grief before the lawyers arrived. Cole Holloway moved fast. Within 48 hours of the funeral, he and Serena had filed an aggressive lawsuit demanding the immediate surrender of the family estate, the Holloway Logistics Corporation, and every liquid asset tied to Margaret's name. Their attorney, a sharp-tongued partner named Victoria Crane, made it clear in her opening brief that they viewed me as a predator who had manipulated a grieving woman for 2 decades. My own attorney, Daniel Park, was furious. He had boxes of evidence, correspondence, medical records, legal precedents, all of it pointing toward a solid defense of my rightful inheritance. He told me we would win. He was nearly certain of it. I told him to draft the surrender papers instead. Daniel looked at me like I had lost my mind. He set down his pen, pushed his glasses up his nose, and spoke very slowly, as if I might not understand what he was saying. Evan, you will walk out of that courtroom with nothing. No home, no savings, no claim to anything Margaret spent her life building. I looked back at him just as calmly. Some battles, I told him, are better lost on purpose. Word traveled fast in Chicago's upper circles. Within a week, the story had twisted itself into something unrecognizable. The young widower, too weak and grief-stricken to fight, had simply handed everything over. Serena was photographed at a rooftop dinner, laughing with friends over imported wine, calling me pathetic to anyone who would listen. Cole gave a brief statement to a financial publication about the importance of protecting family legacies from outside interference. I said nothing. I packed 2 duffel bags and moved into a rented room in Wicker Park. The final court date came on a gray Wednesday morning. The courtroom was crowded, relatives, journalists, 2 members of the corporate board, a handful of creditors I recognized from Margaret's old meetings. I arrived in a navy suit I had bought years ago for one of her foundation dinners. Cole and Serena sat across the aisle, almost vibrating with satisfaction. Victoria Crane stood and announced to the court that all parties had reached an amicable agreement and that the Holloway estate, corporation, and associated assets would transfer in full to her clients. The judge turned to me, asked me, carefully and on the record, whether I understood the scope of what I was signing away. I stood, walked to the podium, and signed every page with a steady hand. Cole exhaled like a man who had just set down a very heavy weight. Serena touched his arm and smiled. It lasted about 90 seconds. Victoria Crane stepped forward to review the executed documents before they were stamped by the clerk. Standard procedure. I watched her face as she reached the addendum on page 11. The professionalism drained out of her expression in real time. She went through the pages twice, then a third time, her jaw tightening with each pass. Cole noticed. "What?" he said, already standing. "What is it?" She didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. What neither sibling had bothered to understand, because they had been so eager to take, was that the Holloway Logistics Corporation was quietly hemorrhaging. For the better part of 3 years, Cole himself had been siphoning funds through a network of shell invoices, falsified vendor contracts, and offshore transfers he had carefully kept hidden. The scheme had accumulated debts that would consume the entire company within 18 months regardless of who owned it. I had found the evidence 8 weeks before Margaret passed, a folder of financial records she had stumbled upon and brought to me in quiet alarm, not yet understanding what she was looking at. I understood immediately. The addendum Daniel had quietly inserted into the transfer agreement stated 2 things. First, that the new owners assumed all past, present, and future legal and financial liabilities of the Holloway Corporation. Every debt, every obligation, every pending claim. Second, that the transfer of ownership would automatically trigger a full, independent federal audit of the company's complete financial history, effective immediately upon signing. Cole had just handed federal investigators the roadmap to his own crimes, and he had done it eagerly, in open court, in front of cameras. The courtroom unraveled in stages. First Victoria, then Cole, then Serena. Each one arriving at the same horrifying conclusion at slightly different moments, like dominoes falling in slow motion. Serena's voice cracked when she finally understood. Cole sat down heavily in his chair and said nothing at all. I stood near the front of the room and felt something settle in my chest. Not triumph exactly. Closer to relief. The kind that only comes when a long, quiet wait finally ends. Margaret had worked her entire life to build something honest. Her son had spent 3 years quietly gutting it from the inside. She never knew the full extent of it. I had made sure of that. And I had made sure that the people responsible faced it without her having to. The FBI arrived at Holloway Logistics headquarters 2 days later. Cole was arrested on multiple federal counts: grand larceny, tax evasion, wire fraud. Serena, untangled from the criminal charges but drowning in civil liability, spent the following year liquidating everything she owned just to stay ahead of the creditors. Daniel called me the morning of the raid. I could hear him smiling through the phone. He apologized briefly and sincerely for doubting me. I told him there was nothing to apologize for. I had quietly kept what was truly mine. A small collection of Margaret's personal letters, a few pieces of art she had bought early in her career, before anyone else believed in her taste, in a private account she had set up in my name years before any of this began. It was enough. More than enough. I moved to a small house on the Oregon coast, spent mornings walking the beach and afternoons volunteering at a youth arts program in town. The people there knew me as Evan, not as the Holloway widower, not as the man who had outmaneuvered 2 of Chicago's most aggressive heirs in open court. Just Evan, who showed up on Tuesdays and knew a lot about color theory and always brought good coffee. On the mantle in my living room, there is a photograph of Margaret taken sometime in her 50s, laughing at something just off camera, eyes lit up, completely unguarded. I look at it sometimes in the evenings, when the light comes in low and golden off the water. She deserved better than what her children gave her. She deserved someone who would stay, and when it mattered most, she deserved someone who would fight, quietly, patiently, and on her terms.